Good evening, everyone. Grab your coffees and settle in because we have a great show for you tonight. I'm Valerie, that's David, and this is our Gen X Pgh Podcast. Tonight's guest didn't witness the scene, he built it. Our guest tonight is Ed Traversari. He's a former music promoter, and he's now teaching music business classes at Point Park. Woo, I bet he's got some good stories.
Bet he does.
I know.
I really like that. Didn't witness the scene, built the
He
scene.
built it. Yes, he did.
Clever use of language, Valerie. I like
you.
that a lot. What was your favorite concert in the 90s?
Oh, Lollapalooza was
Lollapalooza,
pretty.
yeah.
Yeah, because I was backstage.
Yeah.
I wasn't out there with you
Yeah.
dancing. I was backstage hanging out with bands.
I would
was
say
the cool girl back then.
I was drinking more than dancing. just to be clear, I think we should say that.
What was your first concert?
Oh boy!
Like, even like as a child.
You know,
like,
my
what was your
first
one?
concert
Yeah.
was Roberta Flack
Wow.
in New Hampshire at a lake. Yeah, yeah, it was a free concert. Roberta Flack. The first concert that I actively chose to go to was Van Halen with Alice in Chains opening.
Wow.
It's Star Lake Amphitheater. I think it was their first year, Star Lake's first year. And that would have been, I think that was in my first year of college.
Wow.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of concerts.
I know
Valerie.
you have.
A lot
I
of
saw your
concerts. Yeah.
collection of ticket stuff.
And many of them have in some way influenced my life. What do I mean by that? So I'll tell you a funny story. Probably doesn't sound funny. It sounds more tragic than funny, but you have to believe me, it's funny. So I was in college. It's 1990, and I was making the transition from sort of hard rock and metal into alternative music, and there was a band called Queensryche, who was a progressive metal band,
Right.
and they were playing in West Virginia with my favorite band of all time at the time called Warrior Soul was opening. And so it was a blazing snowstorm. You couldn't see 3 feet in front of you, right? And so I called my mother from the college and I said, you know, I'm going to the show tonight. And she said, absolutely not. She said, you've never been to West Virginia. If you go to West Virginia, don't bother coming home. And so I didn't. I went to West Virginia and I saw Warrior Soul and I saw Queensryche, and then I didn't go home that night. And the next day, my mother actually showed up to college, and she was like, what the heck are you doing? I was like, look, I told you I wasn't coming home. I got an apartment right after that.
Yeah,
that
I was
was
say.
the end of it, right?
My
So that was
goodness.
influenced my life that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
But
Your love of music.
the side part of that story is we picked up a guy. I went with a couple other people. We had no idea how to get to West Virginia, right? But somebody had said, oh, I know how to get there. So we drive to McKeesport to pick him up. And then we get in the road. It's like I said, can't see 2 feet in front of you. We turn to him and we go, where do we go now that we're on 22? And he went, oh, I don't know. I just figured there'd be signs that I could tell you. And so we
So
did
young,
eventually
so
make it there.
young.
Yes, so
How
young.
cute.
Yeah, but so many of the shows that I saw were DeCesar
Yeah.
Engler, and,
Oh,
and
yeah.
Ed had a
Yeah.
huge part in those shows, obviously. So I'm really anxious.
Well, I'm kind of embarrassed to tell you what my first concert was. My dad made me go with him. It was Sha Na Na.
That's awesome. I would be proud of that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I
but
would.
My first big concert that I remember was Michael Jackson.
Wow.
Thriller tour. So,
Thriller
yeah.
tour.
hmm
Wow.
That was pretty cool.
You spent some money.
My dad did. I
Yeah.
was like, I don't even
Wow.
know how old I was then, but that was pretty amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what artists have you seen the most?
Red Hot Chili Peppers, Smashing Pumpkins, Pearl Jam, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
The
What about you?
Unfortunately, the band that I've seen the most is a band I never paid for, but was on the ticket with a bunch of other bands that I was
Yeah.
going to see. So Pantera. I've
Oh my
probably
God.
seen Pantera like 8 times, and I have no respect for Pantera's music at all. I
Really?
don't like it at all. But I've seen them more than any other band.
Wow.
Yes, and I don't mind saying that I think Pantera is a horrible, horrible, horrible band. They should have never made it, and they should have never got back together. And I can't believe people spend money to see
Strong
Pantera.
words, David
That's right.
Willow,
And if
strong
Pantera
words.
has a problem, they should come to the Gen X Pgh
Oh, God,
Podcast.
no, please. He's joking. He's so cute. He's joking.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to end on that. We're going to take a sponsor break, and we'll be back with Ed Traversari.
Sounds good.
Where do Pittsburghers go to make a good night even better? Con Alma in downtown Pittsburgh, where the lights stay low, the jazz speaks for itself, and the kitchen is on point. Come early and stay late, and let the night do the rest. That's Con Alma, downtown Pittsburgh.
It rises from the mist. It's back. Your favorite independent publication dedicated to fantastic films. Drive-In Asylum. Brand new issue number 27. Piranha. Werewolves. Gremlins. It must be Joe Dante, the one and only. James L. Conway, who once unleashed the Boogans. And also the queen of Fulci's Living Dead trilogy, Catriona McCall. Plus, film reviews and commentary and newsprint images designed to transport you to an ancient era of newspaper advertising. Yes, the lurid images have returned. Go to groovydoom.etsy.com or go to Strange Vice or Forbidden Planet New York to purchase Drive-In Asylum, your fantastic film connection. To avoid fainting, keep repeating. It's only a fanzine, only a fanzine, only a fanzine, only a fanzine.
Welcome back to Gen X Pittsburgh. We are back at Potomac Station Coffee House, where the coffee kicks in faster than dial-up ever did. Right, Ed?
I like that.
Yeah.
Do you remember dial-up days?
Not really.
Before digital, there was analog.
Of course.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
no, I know.
So you were just saying that you booked a lot of shows with Shana Na.
Shana, yeah, we did. I mean, it's like not the coolest thing to say, but you know, they played the Syrian Mosque one time in the Stanley Theater, probably back in the late 70s. And we started out with 2 shows on a Friday night, and I was working with WPXI. I'll never forget, they were on the TV show. And it was so strong that we kept adding shows. So we booked 5 shows that weekend, 2 Friday, 2 Saturday,
Oh
and
my
a Sunday
gosh.
matinee. Well, when it was over, the manager of Shana Na came to Rich Engler and I said, whatever you guys do, you must know something because we haven't been doing that many
wow.
shows. And they go, would you be interested in taking us on tour? We had never done a tour
Yeah.
because most promoters are territorial.
Right.
And they said, we'll give you everything from like around Biloxi, Jackson, down that way, all the way up north. And we took about 30 cities. So it would be my job to go in, advance all the shows.
Yeah.
And then Rich and I, he would come down whenever it was time to promote the show. But we had a lot of fun with them. We got to know the guys real well.
Oh,
You know,
wow.
They were all great guys. I mean, you know, they were all great. So
Wow.
we did well. We did about 30 shows for about 3 years in a row.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Wow.
we would do shows. You can't get over this. One of the first shows we did was at the LSU Assembly Center in Baton Rouge.
Oh my.
17,000 people.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah, now that's hard to believe.
Yeah.
That is hard to
But
believe.
in the South, particularly, I can't explain it. They were into Bowser and Shana Na so much. I had mayors and I had governors that would come before the show and say, do you think I can meet that Shana?
Wow.
Are you
Na?"
kidding me?
And I would say, oh, I think I could work.
Yeah.
it out." Oh,
Wow.
My dad is going to be so excited
You
to
tell
hear
him that. You
this.
tell him your dad was ahead of his time because they were super big.
man.
And what happened was, as soon as Bowser left and then this Johnny Contardo,
Right.
they all started splitting up. We did them for years afterwards, but it was not, you know, because it just wasn't the same.
Right.
Wow.
Anyways,
Right.
that's my shot on that.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well,
I love
I got
it.
pictures I could send you galore.
Oh, I would love
Well, I started sort of in the middle, but you've had 4 decades in the music business. I think everyone knows
Sounds
you.
like a long time.
It sure does, doesn't it? Everyone knows you as
I was
part of the
hoping I was
Caesar
a lot
Engler.
younger than that. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I started in 75. So, yeah, I got to start in 75.
Yeah.
Went to school at Robert Morris from 70 to 74.
Business or
Yeah, it was a business.
Okay.
You know what the thing was? I always wanted to be in the music business.
Yeah.
But in 1970, I'm a drummer. I've been playing in bands forever, and I thought, where can I go? And the only school I ever knew was Berkeley.
Yeah.
But that time it was all about playing.
Yeah.
And there was no business part of it. And so, anyways, long and short of it is, I said, I'm going to go to Robert Morris because I knew it had a good business program.
Yeah.
And I don't know what I'm going to do. But I told somebody today that what changed my life to get to be a promoter, I was probably the second year at school. And me and my roommates and my college friends, we thought we knew everything about music.
Sure.
Long hair back then,
Right.
you know, it was the mid-'70s. And there was a lot of shows on campuses back then because
Yeah.
there wasn't nearly the venues that we have now. And I would drive to Cal U to go see the James Gang. I was going everywhere to see bands.
Wow.
And Robert Morse was having very little. And I was a little bit concerned about that, as my roommates were.
Yeah.
So one day we said, not only are you not doing very many shows, but who's booking these shows? So let's say they said, you know, John Franklin. I go, well, listen, John's probably a nice guy, but nobody ever shows up. So he does not know what the heck he's doing. And the guy goes, it was the advisor.
Yeah.
He goes, why don't you do something about it? And I said, oh, I just wanted to complain. I didn't want to do any of the work. I said, I'm a college student. I just want to complain that nobody's doing the right thing. He goes, no, you got to get on a committee.
Yeah.
I go, I don't like committees. He goes, well, you got to get on a student activities committee. I go, what is that? You know, and he goes, well, you got to change the way we do movies and concerts. Anyways, I get my roommate, who also didn't want to be on a committee.
Yeah.
We do it the first year. At the end of the year, I had run the spotlight for Muddy Waters and different
Wow.
shows.
Oh my
So I was,
God.
it was kind of cool. And I was
Wow.
really getting the feel of this. Now, none of my classes were music. It was all business.
Right.
I thought, you know what? I'm going to run for president, and I'm going to get my buddy to run for vice president. He goes, who in the heck is going to vote for us? Nobody likes us. I said, what are you talking about? I win, he wins, and everything started changing because we now had the power of booking the shows on campus.
Yeah.
So back then, I don't know if you'll remember this guy, but he was a phenomenal guitar player named Roy Buchanan.
Oh yeah, Roy. Yeah, I know Roy.
And so Roy was on WQED. They had a special on him. There was a national show,
Yeah.
and we saw it, and we were like, oh my God, this guy was asked to play with the Stones.
Right.
Eric Clapton used to say things about, but he was a very quiet guy.
Mhm.
When we found out that his manager was from Pittsburgh, so we went down, PPG, his office was there. Anyways, we booked him, and we had a sold-out show in our gymnasium. Got the bug. I thought, I have a budget. I had to go pick him up at the airport.
Yeah.
Go work security. And you would say, like, what do I do? I don't know. Put that security shirt on. Don't want nobody up on stage. I don't know what to tell you. But now being in the band, I kind of knew some things, you know.
Yeah.
And then after that, it was just interesting. I just sent some pictures out. We just had Sills and Crofts. Remember them?
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Dash just passed away
Right.
last week.
That's right.
And we had a good picture we took back at the school. And after that, we did this band Spirit. You
Yeah.
know,
Oh yeah.
Spirit.
Yeah.
So those three shows were what started my whole thinking, like, this is a business. Like, if I always say to my students, if I couldn't be on stage, because I basically knew that I wasn't going to make
Right.
it big, how close to the stage can I be?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was being a promoter, I thought, now some 5,000 shows later, I know what I was talking
Wow.
about.
Yeah.
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 But that's how I got started.
Right.
So, and then I worked 6 months at a retail store on McKnight Road, and I hated every second of it.
Sure.
And I got married to my wife, who we've been dating since 9th grade.
Oh
Wow.
my gosh.
So
that's
I said, why don't we
beautiful.
just, well, it's okay. But I said, why don't we just get married? And so I got married, but here's the reason why I'm telling you that. Because I went into this guy at the retail store, and I go, hey, I'm getting married. He goes, well, that's very nice. I says, do I get a week off for a honeymoon? He goes, no, you've only been here like 6 months, or 6 months. I'll give you a weekend. I go, well, that's not very long. So I couldn't go anywhere, but I believe in fate. Now I do, because I went to a place called Mountain View Inn, which was
Oh yeah.
in the
Yeah.
area.
Yeah.
And on that weekend, I was still going through the newspaper back in the day to look for
Yeah.
jobs. The Caesar Angler is looking for a runner.
Oh my God.
What the heck is that?
Yeah.
I don't know, but whatever it is, I want to be
Yeah.
it.
Right.
And then my wife goes, who's the Caesar Angler? I says, don't you ever look at our tickets?
Yeah.
They're darn, I didn't know who they were.
Right.
And so it says, call me on Monday. So I'm at my retail store on Monday, and I called him up, and he was a little bit different back then. You know, it was the 70s. He was like,
Yeah.
hey, yeah. He goes, you know, I just fired a bunch of college kids in the last couple of months. I says, really, why? He says, because nobody wants to work. He says, everybody thinks it's so cool to be in this business. And I get a girl the other day, she got hired. I put her in the back. She started getting autographs from our bands.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I'd fire him too. And he goes, did it really? And he goes, yeah. And then there's a guy, he was trying to get autographs with somebody. And I said, well, I get rid of all of them. And he goes, why would you do that? I said, well, aren't we here to protect, the band from the crowd? And he goes, you know what? I love what you're saying, man. He says, I told him I was a drummer. He was a drummer. I didn't know all this. I promoted shows. He says, call me tomorrow. I said, I went home that night. I was so high because I thought this was it.
Yeah.
I had no connections. I mean, I was from a little town and I didn't know anybody.
Right.
First thing he says is, I changed my mind. I go, oh, wow. What do you mean? He goes, I'm just going to do it myself. You sound like a great guy, but I do all this by myself now. So I'm just going to. He loves the story. I mean, I still deal with Rich every day. And I said, but that's not possible. He goes, I mean, it's not possible. I just told you I'm going to do it myself. I said, no, Rich, you don't understand. I'll never have a connection like this in my life. And I really want to be in whatever this is when those lights go down, all that. Got real quiet on the phone, and you know what got him? I says, I'll work for free.
Oh, wow.
He goes, you're hired.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I got hired, and he says, I don't want to go on too long, but he goes, you ever drive a Rolls Royce? I says, I've never even seen one when I was in my little town where I grew up. He says, well, I own a Rolls Royce, and you're going to pick the band America up tomorrow at the airport.
Oh, yeah.
And America happened to be one of my favorite bands because when I went to
Right.
college, I put my drums away, started playing acoustic, and I played all the American
Yeah,
songs.
sure.
But I said I was the rudest driver he had because I wasn't going to talk and get my butt fired.
Right.
Yeah.
So I drove them from the airport to the mosque for their show and paid me $50. A couple days later, he calls me. He says, you still available? I go, yeah, because I quit my job. He goes, you got to pick Jeff Beck up.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Holy cow.
And I was such a big fan, and
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep it calm, like,
Right.
oh, okay, I'll pick up Mr. Beck.
Right.
Oh my God.
Yes, what part of the airport will he be? And he will have a sign. Back in the day, we used to hold
Yeah,
the signs,
yeah.
looking for Jeff Beck. And then a week went by, and he didn't call. And my wife goes, what about your friend Rich Engler? Are you going to give you any work? And I go, well, I'm sure something will come up. But if not, I'll go get a regular job. I just had to get in the door. That's why I said I work for free.
Yeah.
And then he says, about a week later, he goes, you still available? Yeah. He goes, I want you to go pick up Jefferson Airplane.
Oh my God.
This is when this was like Papa John Creech was in the
Right.
band, and
Wow.
Right.
everybody was in the band. And I said, yes, I can do that. And it was after that day I brought his rolls back to his office, and he says, you know what? You did pretty good. I go, well, that's good. I didn't think I was going to be a limo driver all my
Yeah.
life. He says, come in the office and I'll teach you everything.
Wow.
That was 1975, and I still do shows for him 50
Yeah.
years later. you know?
That's incredible.
It really is.
Wow.
It's been fun because he just gave me that chance. And, and I tell him the reason I can teach at Point Park is because he taught me everything.
Sure.
And he
Yeah.
literally taught me everything. He said, I'm going to teach you how to settle shows. I'm going to teach you how to market. I'm going to teach you how to buy. I mean, I didn't know anything except playing drums,
Yeah.
I mean, I knew I wanted to do it,
It really was at a time when this was all brand new. I mean, you had Richard here, maybe in Pittsburgh. You had Bill Graham, in San Francisco, right? But everything was regional.
Yeah.
Everything was one step up from Carnival, right? Like
Yeah,
this is all brand
no,
new.
you're right. It really
right?
was. Well, that's exactly. They joined each other in '73 and made the Caesar Wrangler
Yeah.
partnership. So I was coming along just 2 years later. But the deal was that Pat brought the Beatles in. He did everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, he had Pat Caesar Presents. We all kind of knew who he was. I knew his name. And I know what happened was that Rich, who was a young startup drummer, and he wanted to start doing shows, and they started hitting heads because Rich wanted to bring shows to the arena and all these other venues. And Pat was like, who is this young guy? Because Rich is about 7 or 8 years younger than Pat. And so the story goes that Pat called Rich up and said we should form a partnership. Pat takes a hiatus and jumps out of the business, but stays with us and then asks Rich to run it. And so I come along 2 years later when I think he needed help. And then we bought the Stanley in '77, and then we just never stopped from there.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Real quick, where did you grow up? Did you grow up in Pittsburgh?
Charleroi.
Charleroi. Okay.
Mon Valley.
Yeah.
So you know why I never saw any Rolls Royce. They don't come around my
Right.
town much now.
Not too many of those out there.
I didn't even know how to spell Rolls and Royce. He says, "You ever drive one?" I go, "What are you talking about?" I didn't even know what it. Well, when he told me, he threw these keys at me. He goes, "Practice driving it because tomorrow you're going to pick up America." I go, "What's this practice driving?" Well, it was like a cockpit of an
Yeah.
airplane. And I mean, I have a long story you don't want to know about, but we almost broke down on the first day with America. America guy hits me in the head, says you're going to kill us. I
Wow.
mean, it was,
Oh my God.
but it all worked out.
Right.
No, it was all good.
Right.
You know.
Well, at
But I
least
tell kids, if you ever have a bad first day, think of my America story because I tell them all the details.
At least,
Yeah.
at least you got a car. I remember I used to pick up artists for the Shady Side Arts and Jazz Festival.
Yeah.
And we would pick up people and have to use our car.
I was going to say, I did that a little bit back in my day, but
And sometimes
he had the roles.
yeah, I can remember what artist it was, but we picked them up and they said, "Where are we going?" And we said, "Well, we're going to Dwayne Dolphin's house. That's where you're staying." And he said, "No, I need my check and I need a bank." And so we had to drive to the Shady Side Summer Jazz Festival. So he got a check and then he went to the bank. He didn't deposit the check. cashed it. Didn't
Oh,
want
yeah.
paper,
Times were so
right?
different.
Yeah.
You know, and I
Yeah.
took people many places, even on those 3 times. I mean, because that's what we use people for, to take them,
Yeah.
places and all
Yeah.
that. But that was a good experience because driving the band, getting to know how they were and everything, and everything that I did for Rich, I learned, so I knew how to tell somebody else. So,
Yeah.
I started off where I was a production manager, and he says, I'm going to teach you how to work backstage and do all the production. I go, okay, great, and I'll never forget one of my first big shows was Queen.
Oh.
How
Is this
big?
the Kansas
Yeah.
show?
No,
Oh,
I
okay.
know what you mean now.
Okay.
No, this was when they went to the arena and they
Oh.
were the headliner. And I'll just tell you this quick story was I was still about 25, probably 26. So I was really unsure of what I was doing. And back then we had no, emails. We couldn't communicate like
Right.
that. I was just taking my notes. And as a production manager, you're dealing with size of the stage and catering and, all the behind the scenes with their production guy. Well, the day the show comes in the morning, I'm there about 8 o'clock for our rigging and everything. And the guy that was the tour manager for Queen, he wasn't very happy. He was an English chap.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he was all on drugs at the time,
Right.
as they all were. And everything I did was wrong. Everything. He says, this stage is not the right size. The steps are on the wrong side. The food is like dog food. I mean, he gave me everything you can imagine. That's the way they talk
Yeah.
about everything, And I was like, okay, and I said, I'm Italian, and my blood does start to boil every once in a while.
Yeah.
And it was starting to boil, and I don't want to blow this whole operation. So I was going, So about 12 o'clock, Rich shows up always, and he has everything going okay, and I go, not very well. He goes, well, what's wrong? I go, well, I told him the guy's name. I said, I know I'm not perfect. I said, but there's no way I could be wrong on all these things. He goes, listen, I'm sure he's wrong. I have your back, believe me. However, do not, and I'll never forget this, do not burn any bridges. You go in there and tell that guy what you really think, we're going to be completely screwed.
Yeah.
We're going to lose the band. He's going to come back and see you many years later. And that was a valuable lesson. I went to another room and I blew my steam off. I went back and I said, maybe it was wrong. Maybe I wrote it down wrong. What size did you want? It's the same thing I had done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where'd you want the steps? Oh, stage-hands. Put it on stage left. At the end of the day, it was, Ed, very nice working with you, and then we became good friends. But that lesson was invaluable.
Yeah.
Because I knew that, when you're a tour manager, you don't work with these bands forever.
Right.
So, they're going to come back with Super Tramp or any of those
Right.
English bands we had, And then they would be like, oh, you're the guy in Pittsburgh that I can't stand. So
Yeah.
that was a valuable lesson. But I don't know why I told you that, but I just
No,
did.
yeah.
I love it. I love it.
that
do
was
wanna
one of my
hear
first big
I do want to
shows.
hear the Kansas story later with Queen down at the Stanley because having somebody back out of a show probably gives everybody that.
Yeah, it does. The only reason I can't really talk to that story is because that was right before I started.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
You weren't there?
It was
for
right at that time. Yeah,
Oh,
no.
darn.
I started May 1st. That was like, I don't know, February, March.
May 5th.
Yeah, well, no, it was right before me. And Rich has told it all to me 100 times.
Yeah.
But, I didn't have those. His big thing back when Kansas used to come all the time, like, for instance, was it Kansas and Styx with Queen one
Yeah.
time. Queen, I know the situation with that one. I don't know. Queen, Freddie Mercury got sick.
Yeah.
And normally when a band gets sick, we postpone the show, typically. In this case, it was so early on in life, Rich goes back to the dressing room and talks to both Kansas personally and Styx and says, look, they're not playing. Can you guys play a little longer? You guys get play on DVE, the big rock station.
Yeah.
And they were like, I don't even know if he gave me any more money. They said, sure. And Kansas will tell you today, Phil Ehart tells us every time we do them that's why Pittsburgh is their biggest market
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah.
And when they did their anniversary here just 40 years, they picked one place to do it, and they called Rich and said, can we do it in Pittsburgh? And it's because the relationship, he said, we're bigger here than in Topeka, which is where they're from.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
because that started, and I shouldn't take, we're not taking the credit. DVE needs the credit. They're the ones that made them who they are because they played every single song you can imagine.
Wow.
Right. Well, it's so interesting, though. I saw Kansas. I've paid to see Kansas. I've seen them at the Rib Festival for free.
Yeah, we've run the Rib Festival.
they've really run the gamut here.
Oh
in
my God,
Pittsburgh.
yeah, they're still out and
Yeah.
about. We just had them a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you're not going to get too many of the original members,
Right.
but Phil still plays a few songs on drums. The bass player's still there. we had it for a couple anniversaries. It was great. Kerry Livgren came in. Dave Hope, the bass player, who's a minister, came in and played.
Yeah.
You know, they really appreciated Pittsburgh so much when we said, hey, will you guys all come in? They go, oh, we'll try to get there. And, you know, they're hobbling in, but they're getting there.
Yeah.
So I have a list here of a bunch of venues.
Yeah.
Syria Mosque, Stanley Theater, AJ Palumbo, Mellon, Three Rivers, Heinz Field, PNC Park, Star Lake. You've done.
You did them all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was your favorites?
That's a good one. Probably because we owned the Stanley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our offices were in there for 7 years. I basically, lived there almost. I would say it was my favorite because my experiences were just, we knew the whole building, we knew everything about it. The mosque was also great. I mean, it was a great building. We were up there, but I just probably say the Stanley. But I loved them all.
Yeah.
I mean, I managed IC Light for 9 years, and I knew every little creek about that place too, the old arena. And I mean, they were all great venues, But I would say the Stanley because when I look back at the Stanley history, and I think Pittsburgh is the same, I see so many stories. Everybody wants to talk about the history.
Yeah.
They want to tell you what their favorite show was there and what they were doing. And we just had everybody.
Right.
When I say we booked, one night it could have been Sha Na Na, and the next night it was Ozfest. I mean, because they were coming up, So one thing Pat and Rich said years ago when I first was there and we first bought the building, we said, look, we're not just going to be rock promoters like so many of our counterparts were in other states. We said, we're going to try to run this place and do, as long as it's something that's going to sell, we're not. So I booked jazz forever, Crusaders and Weather Report and all those guys.
Yeah.
And then we put country in back in the day, but we would do rock and we would do, Rodney Dangerfield. I mean, we just did them all. We haven't even had Red Skelton. I mean, I can't even tell you how many shows we had. I used to say, we had like a board that would just throw boom, book that band, book that one. Because, I mean, there was no semblance of order. But I'm not saying everything sold very well. I mean, we lost money on a lot of shows, but that's the way the promoter business works.
Yeah. Do you know how many people want to be you? Like, that is like the coolest job, ever. Yeah.
Well, you know what?
My niece, for example, she's graduating from Kent State University in a couple weeks, and she's looking for a job promoting concerts. So
You see, that's why I went back. That's why I went to Point Park to teach it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I had no clue to teach.
Right.
Nothing was in my mind about teaching. Although I think in retrospect, I was teaching interns all my life.
Yeah.
But I was the manager of Station Square for about 9 years. IC Light, did all the shows. And we had sold to Live Nation, and I was still on board. But, because even though we gave up our personal interest in the company, they said, you can stay on board. So I said, okay, I'll stay here. And one day I had a girl come up to my office, and she goes, Ed, I'm your intern. I said, oh, good. What's your name? She told me, Mary. Where do you go to school? She said, Point Park. I said, oh, I can see it across the river from where I'm at. And I said to her, what's your major? I'm always asking, what the major? Sports, Arts, and Entertainment Management. I said, what the hell is that? She goes, well, it's Sports, Arts, and Entertainment Management. I go, well, I hope they teach you more than that because that's not a good answer. And she said, well, it's a bunch of sports guys, but they have the wherewithal to think, let's put arts and entertainment. And I said, well, who's teaching your entertainment? They said, I don't think they have anybody yet. I go, well, that's not good. So I had lunch with somebody that I was offering to teach. Yeah. 1 year went by for whatever reasons. And I had about 36 years at the Caesar Angler. And I thought, you know what? I was 55. I know what it was like. My own kids are in the business. My one son runs the Peterson Event Center. One lives in Nashville working. They're into it. Yeah. So I thought, we got to give back to these kids because, it's hard.
Yeah. Right.
So I called Point Park and they said, you know what, it's interesting you're here. We have nobody to do this. Why don't you become full-time? I said, I'm not a professor. And they said, you'd be great to run it. And I said, they go, what's your education? I go, well, I got a bachelor's degree from Robert Morris. They go, what else? Yeah. I go, about 36 years of doing everything you can possibly imagine. And the guy goes, what else? I go, what else is there? He goes, you got to have at least a master's. I go, well, I don't have one. He goes, well, you ought to get one. I go, where am I going to get it? He goes, you get it here. Yeah. And I said, did I tell you I was 55?
Right.
He goes, yeah, what's the big deal? I go, I'm not into going back to school at 55, but I did for 19 months and got that darn paper on my wall.
Good for you.
Well,
That's
because
incredible.
I wanted to teach that band.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah,
and I'm fine with it now. That's 19 years ago,
Yeah.
But
well, it's funny because
do it.
when I say we, I mean most of the people that work on this show, except Valerie, went to Point Park.
I
amazed
did.
by
No,
that.
I went to Point
Oh,
Park.
okay.
I attended
Yeah.
Point
What was
Park.
your major?
But
It was communications.
Oh,
Right.
yeah, everybody likes that.
Right.
Yeah.
but when we went, it was Point Park College.
Yes.
That's
And we
what
went
yeah.
in the waning days of Point Park College when they were dropping majors like crazy. You know, I mean, by the time we left, I think there were like 3 majors, seriously,
Oh,
and they were thinking
yeah.
about merging with Duquesne.
Oh, okay.
And
I
then,
didn't know that.
so you know, I'm working, I'm away, and then I met some guy that I'd gone to high school with or something, and I said, "So what are you doing now?" And he said, "I'm teaching at Point Park," and I said, "Really? What?" And he said, "And I guess they have some sort of medical program." And I was like, "Well, what are you doing?" He's like, "Well, I teach about this muscle." And he
Oh.
went like this,
Yeah.
and I'm like, "No, you're not teaching at Point Park. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, come on.
maybe you're a
That
kid."
specific,
Yeah,
you're
and he's
doing
like,
that? The place
"No,
that dropped
I'm
everybody?"
telling you, we are." And I was like, "That's unbelievable, right?"
So
So
it's come a long way.
yeah, that school
I can,
was really.
I can see that in my 20 years.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had a couple different presidents, but they are, especially the guy right now. I
Yeah.
mean, we're buying things up
Right.
in town, and
Right, it owns half the town. It's
yeah,
amazing what
that,
Point Park
that
is
area
doing.
over by there,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and also they're just into entertainment
Right.
a lot. You know, they love our label. They support us. The president was at our VIP party
Yeah.
the United Stage AE.
He's going to be on in a few weeks.
Is that
Chris, yeah.
Oh, he's a
Yeah.
great guy.
Yeah, I know
You know,
Chris,
he's
yeah.
really good. I
Yeah.
really like him, and he's really big on supporting me in my Nashville trip because I take kids to Nashville, about 8 or 10, to work at a music conference every year, and he came down a couple times and said, "No, I got to come down and meet everybody," because he said we need to make this connection in Nashville. And I said, "Well, I'm with you," and I'm glad whenever the president shows it.
Yeah.
And we also had our number 2 guy come down. I told the kids that were there, I said, "The president's here," and they go, "What?" I mean, you know, some people roll their eyes when you say that, but to me, that's pretty amazing. That, you know, there's a lot of other things like a president of a university could be doing,
Right.
Yeah.
and not going down to hang out with some kids at a music
I
place.
love it.
right
I love
Nashville.
it.
I see him everywhere. So I'm the senior staff. I'm a senior staff writer at the Pittsburgh Jewish Chronicle, and he's at almost every journalism event there is in the
He
city.
likes to get around.
Yeah, he
You know,
really
so
does.
Anyways, he's done a good
Yeah.
job, and so that's where I'm
Yeah.
at. So,
Yeah.
you know, that's
Wow.
it.
Yeah.
That's my Point Park.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break. We're going to let you have some water. We've been doing a lot of
Yeah.
talking.
Oh my God!
We'll be
yeah,
right
I
back.
got everything. I can tell you everything.
We'll be right back after this break.
When I need a coffee that actually shows up and a suite that understands commitment, I head out to Potomac Station Coffee. Everything's made in-house, always fresh, and yes, that cinnamon roll, you're eating the whole thing. And the ever-changing latte menu is legendary. Check out Potomac Station Coffee House next to the tracks in Dormont.
Welcome back to the Gen X Pittsburgh Podcast. We're here with Ed Traversari, and he is telling us all about the music business. Right? Ed, I'm really interested in learning a little bit about how the business changed over the years, right? I know that in the 70s, it was sort of the Wild West, right? And it was a manager that would show up and say, you put in 10 extra seats, you owe us that, right? And now it's so business, and it's such a so regimented and so systematic, and over the years, independent promoters have given way to Live Nation, and radio stations have consolidated to become iHeartRadio or Odyssey. What's it been like to be there in the concert side of this over all those
You
years?
know, you just said pretty much the whole thing right there. You know, and
Well, I feel bad.
I don't have to answer it all. You just made a darn good answer. Next question, please. No, I mean, it really was.
Yeah.
It's exactly what it was. I mean, you know, when I was doing it with Rich back in the 70s, it's exactly that. It was very territorial, and that's how it got started. So in Pittsburgh, it was DeCesar Engler. In Philadelphia was another company.
Yeah.
Cleveland, another company. New York, another company. Bill Graham, West Coast. Every major city had a promoter that the agents would know that they could work with these people. And it was like that forever. You didn't go out of your area. Like, in other words, if we got a call from somebody and they would say, do you want to play this show in Cleveland? We'd say, no, we don't do Cleveland.
Right.
It's somebody else's territory.
Right.
I would respect them if they would be called in Cleveland and they go, we're not going to Pittsburgh. We tried to protect our territories because that's how the business should work.
Yeah.
You get somebody coming in and they do, and we did get that once in a while. But then, you know, in the late 90s, we got a an email, whatever, social media one day, and there was a guy named Sillerman who owned a company called SFX.
Right.
And he bought Ron Delsner, who was the biggest promoter in New York, for some ungodly amount of money, which sent shockwaves up through the music industry business-wise. And we thought, well, okay, I can't believe he sold. About 2 days later, Bill Graham sold his company, and we never thought he would.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh boy, I guess the money got to him and he wanted to get out of it. A few days later, another company. Before you know it, you saw it like this.
Right.
And it took about a year. We got our call in Pittsburgh, and they said, we want to meet. And so we sold, and it eventually became Live Nation. It was that whole type thing. But yeah, so the independents are still there, but now it's more conglomerated, so that when Live Nation books a show, they might book the whole tour.
Right.
And then they'll call Star Lake's president here locally, and they'll say, you don't have to do anything. We booked the show already. It's, this show.
Yeah.
Tedeschi Trucks. You're doing it that night. Here's the dollar amount, and just basically make sure it works. Then you get somebody like Brian Drusky, who used to work for us for years. Stage AE. There's some independents out there. They go after it. But what I tell our students is, it's just a little more business-like.
Yeah.
It was Wild Wild West.
Right.
I tell them about the riders we used to get.
Yeah.
I mean, the riders for some of those bands like the Allman Brothers and, Leonard Skinner were just crazy. Because back then, the way the deals were cut, the promoter was pretty much paying for everything.
Right.
Meaning you paid a guarantee, you paid for the sound, the lights, you paid for the rent, the advertising, and you paid for their catering. So if they wanted 6 bottles of Dom Perignon and they wanted to throw 5 out the window, that's up to them. We didn't pay for it. We don't even like it. It's like going to an all-inclusive place like at Sandals or something.
Right.
And that's what they did for years. And so the riders were crazy. Rich would buzz me many times and say, don't buy that. Don't buy it. I go, well, you're not in the dressing room when I walk in. And the guy calls me in and Ed, where's our Dom Perignon?
Yeah.
So the deals have changed now.
Right.
Bands are participating in more money, but they also participate in the expenses.
Right.
So by doing that, how quickly the riders start to condense,
Right.
and that's where you see it. And so I have to teach that to these kids all the time. And also the other thing that's different is the riders are people want to eat better.
Right.
They don't want to drink as much.
Right.
Yeah.
I think they want to live. They don't want to
Right.
die like so many of
Sure.
our people
Right.
died because, it's the way it was. You'll get your once in a while still out there, but no, there's vegetarian. I mean, the riders are completely different.
Well, did you ever have an experience like this? A friend of mine used to work for the cultural district, and they bring in, I don't want to say it, but they bring in somebody who used to be in a big rock band. Now he's an individual, right? And so my buddy's going through the contract and everything he's to do for the rider, and he does it all. And it's an hour or two before the show starts, and he's sitting in his office, and there's a bang. I don't want to say a knock. There's a bang on his door, right? And he opens it up, and it's the guy. And the guy says to him, what the hell's going on? And he says, what do you mean? He goes, my rider says there's supposed to be a massage woman. And he said, yeah, we got you a massage therapist. She goes, you idiot. A massage therapist doesn't mean a massage therapist.
We're not talking about the same
Right?
ones.
Yeah. Like, so did you have a lot of those?
we had
There was all
tons
kind of,
oh my God. Yeah. It just, that's what I'm saying. I tell these kids now, I can't even tell you the stories.
Yeah.
And people, with Rich and I, it was funny. It just kind of rolled off our backs.
Yeah.
I learned from him this I don't know, just get it. And we never made a big deal about it.
Yeah.
We just kind of let it go. I mean, we still talk about him today.
Right.
But, we never let it bother us, even though it was so ridiculous or so silly. Or, I remember one time I had to get a limo for every member of Fleetwood Mac. I'm going like, why can't they just carpool together? I mean, how many people were in that van? They just wanted a limo sitting outside at Chatham Center, and each wanted to have so when they wanted to go for a ride, they could jump in their limo. And I thought, that's a waste of money. But, after a while, you go, you know what, just get it. So when I had runners coming to me afterwards and go, Ed, should I get this? First thing I would do is I'd check the ticket sales. Yeah. I'd say, hold on, let me check ticket sales. And if ticket sales were at a certain point where I knew they were under percentage, I go, and they're paying 85 cents on the dollar, get them whatever they want.
Yeah.
We're only putting 50. Now, if we're losing money, let's have a conversation. Right. And that's not easy, but I'd have to reach out to them and say, look, I need to cut back. And a lot of times they would say, we could cut 3 cases this out, maybe just get us, Now they've got menus for every day. See, in the old days, the riders for food was you get them what you want for dinners
Right,
and lunches.
right.
But what happened was they were getting maybe spaghetti every night in Chicago and
Sure.
Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And we're tired of chicken, you know?
Right.
So now they got a Monday through Sunday menu. And when you get your rider, for most bands, you open it up and you say, okay, let's see, our date's on a Wednesday. Oh, we're going to have Chinese food.
Oh, wow.
And this way they know they're going to be eating Chinese food in Pittsburgh, but they're not going to get it in Cleveland the next
Right.
night.
Right.
Now that's just for the main courses, which is really sensible.
Yeah.
And then the other thing the bands do is many of them bring their own caterers.
Right.
It's called tour catering, and
Yeah.
I used to love that because the caterers were phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean,
My
we had a
cousin does that.
Oh, is that right?
actually.
Yeah.
that's a good business for a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
people. They sometimes quit their regular businesses and just travel with bands.
Wow.
Yeah.
They have trucks that have refrigeration. Oh, we've used them in Erie, Johnstown. I'd take them from Pittsburgh. They'd come out because I didn't like the caterer we
Yeah.
had there, and they would go. Our runners would shop locally and buy all the products
Yeah.
we need, but then they'd be backstage
Yeah.
cooking it and chopping it up. And I knew that the band would like it because I knew what our caterer could
Yeah.
do.
Right.
And they do it. The national ones will pick one because, like McCartney, he's very special on what he likes to eat. So, and Dave Matthews, he's the same way. They'll do their own.
Yeah.
And they'll say, listen, don't take it personal. We'll go, no, it's not, our caterer won't be mad. They just, they're losing some money. But they say, well, we're going to bring our own person.
Right.
And then, you knew you were going to get a
Right.
really great dinner, though, because these tour caterers are
Oh,
fabulous.
yeah.
As the music business has changed, so has the touring business for these artists. So many of the artists make money now doing meet and greets where they charge, a lot of money, right? I remember looking at one artist where it was, let's just say it was $100 for, a ticket,
Yeah.
but they had another package where it was like $250 with a meet and greet.
Yeah.
It was labeled a meet and greet, but you didn't even get to meet the
them.
artist,
No, I
right?
know. That's also kind of a...
Right. So do you?
And that
Does the
happens.
promoter make money off of that?
No, we don't make anything.
No.
It's
So they
goes
make
to
all of that.
goes to
Wow.
that. Yeah, because somebody did that years ago. I tell students, I remember this. Speaking of that, I remember the first one I was affiliated with. We had the Rolling Stones at Mellon Arena after doing stadium shows and everything with them, and this had to be 30 years ago, way before VIP even came up. And the tour people that were doing the show said, "Oh, by the way, we're going to have a kind of a VIP for $500 a ticket." Way back when,
Wow.
and I said, "Even the Stones, who's going to pay for
Right.
that, right?" Well, we put 500 tickets above, beyond, and no problem. They sold them in no time. So the night of the show came, and the only affiliation we have for the promoter is helping them coordinate a room where they're going to have the people come in and put their little signs up and maybe get their food and drinks. So it was about 10 minutes before the show started when they should be having it. And my friend and I, who was working, said, "You know what? We should go up to that meet and greet." I said, "Yeah, you know what? I'd like to go up and see Keith Richards and Mick Jagger, just like everybody else. We have lanyards. Let's go up." So we go up, we go in the room, and so I look around. I don't see no Keith Richards. I see no Mick Jagger. I don't see anybody that looks like a Rolling Stone.
Right.
And the kids, people are eating and drinking, and they're picking up their little bag of stuff. And I said to a roadie, I go, "I guess we must have missed him." And he goes, "Miss who?" I go, "Mr. Rolling Stones, $500 a ticket." And he goes,
Right.
"Oh, they don't come for $500." I go, "They don't?" So people paid to get it wasn't autographed lithograph.
Right.
And they got some swag and all
Right.
that.
Yeah.
But there are times,
Yeah.
but they're trying to be more clear. Now, you don't
Right.
want to go in there like that. That was early and that was too
Yeah.
confusing because
Yeah.
people will get really mad.
Yeah.
But there are ones that maybe like Beyonce might meet people for $500, but there's others that they'll maybe just do a swag and all that for like $125,
Well, I met the new kids on the block for a couple
Oh,
hundred
yeah.
a couple years ago.
Hey, look at that, huh? Jeez. New kids on the block. We did so many shows too.
Oh my
man.
gosh. My sister-
NKOTV.
My sister and I are going out to Vegas in June to see
Oh,
them.
is that right?
Yeah.
Now, do they do a show with anybody else? I mean, is it like the Backstreet Boys or anybody?
No, I don't
They're on
think
their
so.
own.
I think it's
Wow.
MGM. Yeah.
It's going to be big.
Yeah.
I mean, because I know they're out there doing all those.
It's a
yeah.
residency, I'm assuming.
Probably.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I was just out there with my husband. We saw Dead and Company at the
Oh,
Sphere
wow.
a couple years ago.
Now, see, I've not been out yet, but see, I've got a couple.
You've got to
I know,
experience that.
And
Oh
I got
my
a couple
gosh.
kids that live in Nashville that work there, and they'll tell me all the time how great it is. They're out there selling merch for like the Eagles.
Yeah.
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 I got one. Here's a story, a little bit of history. I don't know if you'll remember this, but you said NKOTB. So, Three Rivers Stadium was coming down.
Right.
Okay, they were going to tear it down to build a stadium. So, we had the last concert ever in Three Rivers. I
Yeah.
won't tell you who it is, but we had the last show ever. about 1999, because they
Right.
started building Heinz Field.
Right.
So they're going to open it up, and we know the GM real well because he used to be over at the other stadium, and he says, look, can you guys bring a show in here because we'd like to do a concert before we have our first football game
Oh,
to
good.
make sure the bathroom
Yeah.
worked. This, every
Right.
graduate. We said, sure. Now you have to imagine this is back in 2000. There was no Chesney, there was no Taylor Swift, there was
Right.
nobody. It was hard to find a good stadium show, right? So Rich is looking around, and this same band that we had just had, who did 55,000 people basically a year before, was open to do the stadium. And so we said to the guy at the stadium, I don't know if I would suggest this because they just did 50. I don't know if we could do another 60,000 over
Right.
here. And they said, I don't know, man, this band's really strong. So Pittsburgh did the last show at Three Rivers. And the first band that ever played at Heinz Field was the same band.
Wow.
Sold them both out. NSYNC.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah,
A lot of people don't know that.
Wow.
It's part of
That's very
history.
cool.
So I'm giving you some
Wow.
history. See that?
Yeah.
But isn't that something?
That's very cool.
I mean, you would never think. People go, oh, who was it? Was it, whoever? Genesis, was it Billy Joel? And that it was NSYNC.
Yeah.
And we sold out both places. There was over 110,000 people between those two shows.
What was your favorite performance of all the ones you've seen? Do you have any?
That's always hard to say, but I like to. Bob Marley meant a lot to
Oh, yeah,
me.
sure.
And
Yeah.
yeah, it really
Yeah.
did. Bob Springsteen's probably one of my favorite performers.
Sure.
But I'd like everybody, that I've learned to like a lot of people because I was never into one. But Marley meant a lot because he did his very last show with us. That's all in the books. I mean, if you look
Wow.
up any Marley book, you go right to the end. It'll say he finished his, because he got cancer. 8 months later, he passes away. So it's monumental.
Wow.
When you think
Yeah.
about
Wow.
the Wailers,
Yeah.
And we didn't know that. We'd played him 2 or 3 times at the Stanley. September 23rd, 1980 was the last show. So about a week before the show, Rich gets a call from the agent. He says, hey, we just want to let you know that Bob's not feeling well. What's wrong? He's exhausted, which a lot of bands, they use that excuse for
Sure.
a lot of people. Okay, well, he's exhausted. How exhausted is he? We said it's sold out, and we knew we were going to make money,
Yeah.
but we also just personally really liked him.
Yeah.
Right.
And they said, well, he's not sure, but, we're going to try to see if he can do it. Well, anyways, a couple of days before the show, they called and said, no, he's going to come. So he comes and plays, and it was a phenomenal show. As I remember, because I was a production manager, 3 or 4 encores where he couldn't leave the stage. People wouldn't let him leave. After the show was over, we went upstairs, took a picture with him, gave him his plaque and everything. But it was really the next day when his agent called Rich and said, how was the show last night? We said, unbelievable. He couldn't get off the stage and people wouldn't let him leave. He had a 2-hour sound check,
Yeah.
which is not normal. They do an hour. They said, well, he's very sick. He's got cancer, and we're canceling the tour from this day on, and then we're going to get him treatment, and then we're going to pick the tour back up. So 8 months later, he dies. So that becomes the very last show that Bob ever played with the Wailers ever.
Wow.
And little did I know until I started reading the Marley books, because I was so interested in knowing. Here's the rest of it. He was playing Madison Square Gardens 2 days before us, opening for the Commodores,
Yeah.
because they wanted him to get a more black audience. He
Yeah,
had nothing but
sure.
a white audience in the smaller venues. So he was opening there, and the Commodores had, black and white. He passed out in Central Park day before the show.
Wow.
His tour manager called the manager, who's not usually at the show, and manager said, that's it. I know Bob's not feeling well. We're getting him to a doctor. He never wanted to go to the doctor. So the books will tell you that he sends the family there was a day off before Stanley, and Rita was in the band, his wife, and I3s and Marcia Griffiths and the Wailers, to Pittsburgh. He goes to the doctor. He gets the bad news that they got the cancer. So he comes in on the day of the show, we're told. Now, we don't know any of this the day of because none of the band can talk about it back
Right.
there, so we don't know anything. But I was told that Rita went absolutely crazy and said, we're not playing tonight. You should have been seeing the doctor. She went
Yeah.
crazy. And he says, no, the band needs the money. We're going to play the show. Because it was not like it's now.
Right.
I mean, they're worth,
Yeah.
Right.
multi-millions, but back then it wasn't. We don't know any of this. So now I think back and I go, a 2-hour sound check? That's not normal. And I was there all that time, and he was up in here and up in here.
Yeah.
Then when he came out, he couldn't leave the stage. I mean, that you can get any of this online because all that music's on there. and it makes sense now.
Yeah.
So that was pretty monumental
Yeah.
for Pittsburgh in general, not
Right.
just for us. But I mean, and a lot of people don't know that he played the last show at the Stanley.
Right.
You know, it's not something that you read in the paper every day.
Right. So I used to produce commercials
Mhm.
for Star Lake and for some other, right? And I remember Journey was coming, and Journey did not have Steve Perry, obviously, right? But they had said to in the instructions, you get these instructions, right? We want you to use all of Journey's hits, but you can't use Steve Perry's vocals at all, right? But we just want to give the idea
Yeah,
that maybe
of
Steve
course.
Perry will be there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So were there a lot of things that happened like that for these shows?
You know, it got to be more of that later. You know, because during our period, everybody was there.
Sure, of
And,
course,
and
yeah.
you know, and thankfully, probably for me, the last 20 years when all this has been going on, I'm not doing all those shows any longer in my
Oh,
park.
yeah.
But, you know, for us, it was still all the bands. We didn't have too much of that. I do get that now with some bands, like we do Kansas,
Yeah, sure.
obviously.
Right.
They're very fair about it. They don't want to mislead anybody, but it's hard for me sometimes, and I think even Rich, when we're putting on a show and we know that, you know, the lead singer's not there, and we don't lie.
Right.
We don't say anybody's coming, but people still want to be close to the band.
Right.
And Journey's the same way. You know,
Right.
some people do. I personally feel, you know, if I was a fan, I want to see the lead singer for sure. And when he's not in the band, I probably don't want to go because even though I'm a drummer's a drummer,
Yeah.
Right.
bass player's a bass player.
Yeah.
Guitar players, okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to put you up here,
Right.
and I'm going to put the singer really up there. And if you're
Right.
going to give me another singer,
Yeah.
I don't take it personally, but I'm probably not going. And that's the way, that's just a personal thing. But I think we're jaded too, because a lot of my friends, they'll go to these shows and they'll say, boy, Kansas sounded so good for how
Right.
old they are. I go, well, nobody in the band is even
Right.
any of the original. They
Right.
go, really? I don't want
Right.
to tell them.
Right.
They think it's still the same band.
Right.
I go, where have
Right.
you been for the last 30 years?
Right, I remember Dr. Hook seeing Dr.
I wanna
Hook,
tell him.
and there was like, I get his name, the guy with the patch, right?
Oh,
The guy
yeah,
that was it. Everyone else,
Yeah.
yeah, and probably turned over 3 or 4 times.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Did you notice anybody didn't have gray hair in
Right,
that band? They go,
exactly.
yeah, they look
Yeah.
great.
Right.
Oh.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyways.
What do you want your legacy to be?
Oh, geez, I don't have a legacy, but I just really, I like just, you know, I think that people should just really go to a lot of concerts and go to
Yeah.
music. And I'm glad that a little guy that comes from this little small town, really had the chance. And it's Rich and Pat. I mean, Rich
Yeah.
Engler, Pat DeCesar. You know, of course, I had to tell him I'd work for free, and I did get me in the door.
Yeah.
But, you know, without that, I have no idea what I'd done. I'd have probably still played I'm in a band right now. I
Yeah.
play in the Good Karma band, which is my
Okay,
own little
okay.
band.
Yeah.
Yep, we got about 23 shows this summer. I do tons
Wow.
of wineries.
You can book
breweries.
yourself, right?
I book myself all the
Yeah.
time. I really do. And I didn't even want to do it, but people call and go, Ed, I didn't know you played drums. I go, well, I didn't tell anybody.
Yeah.
All those years in DeCesar Wrangler, I couldn't play because I couldn't tell Rich,
Right.
hey, I got a gig this weekend. Well, we got you too.
Yeah.
I
Right.
go, hell with you two. I got
Right.
a gig over here at the brewery.
Well, I bet everything on the rider gets filled for
Oh,
you, doesn't
no.
it?
We're so
Yeah.
easy. But
Yeah.
you know,
Don't
it's,
look me in the eyes.
Right.
Two M&Ms
it's
only.
been fun,
Right.
you know, because now I got
Right.
more time so I can do
Right.
it. So it's
Well,
really fun.
So I have something that I wanted to do. I was thinking about you being here, and I thought I'm not making it up, probably 1,000 tickets, at least ticket stubs at home,
Oh,
right?
yeah, I'll bet.
And so I went and I grabbed a whole bunch of them. And I think I tried to get the ones that were just to Caesar Engler,
Oh, even if
right?
not, doesn't
But so
matter.
I'm just going to grab,
Come on,
3 or
yeah.
4 of them, and let's just see if you have any stories about them, or you can say, this wasn't the Caesar Engler show,
But
right?
even if it wasn't, it doesn't
All right.
matter. There's a lot of Star Lake shows. Like
Yeah. So all right, here's
all.
Bon Jovi in I don't know some point in the 90s, probably 92.
Well, I'll tell you the Bon Jovi one, which was great. How should I say this? We had Bon Jovi. This was back in the arena days when
Yeah.
Slippery When Wet was a big deal.
Yeah. Right.
So DV, once again, I got to give them so much credit because they were our bread and butter for years. So we sold one show out before he got to Pittsburgh. So we did the show, and that night the manager says, "Do you think we can come back and do a second show, like maybe in 3 months?" And nobody had done that before. So because normally if you were going to do 2 shows, you'd put them back to
Right.
back.
Yeah.
Sure.
But we said, maybe we could. So we told DVE, can you sell us another show out? And they go, it's pretty big, man. I don't know. We think we can. Now you got to pay the band another big round of money.
Right.
So that's a big risk. When we sold out, darn, they come in and a manager that night goes, this was fun. Do you think we can do a third show?
Wow.
Honest to
No
God.
way.
And we thought, but that album was so big.
Right.
So we go back at it and sold a third show out. So we did about 50,000 people that year for Bon Jovi. But the funny part was we used to give plaques to all the bands when they would sell out. And I had the plaque place I'd go in and all that. So Rich goes, listen, no plaque for Bon Jovi. I want you to get him a big trophy. Yeah. And I said, okay. So I go to the store that I usually work with, and I go, now I knew the guy real well. Yeah. And I says, hey, we got Bon Jovi coming. We got 3 shows sold out. I want to get a nice trophy so I can put something described. The Caesar Wrangler, congratulates John Bon Jovi for whatever. He goes, Ed, what are any music things that go like that? I go, no, I know you don't. I says, but you got something. I'm looking around the store, and I says, and he doesn't want a small one. He wants one about 5 feet high so we can hold it up like this when we go in the dressing room, right? So I see one in the corner, and I go over and I go, well, that's really nice. He goes, well, the only thing is, it's a gymnastics one. There's a girl on the front with her hands up like this, and I go, he won't look at it. So I was so nervous to the day of the show because I had the little thing that went on there. It says, the Caesar Wrangler, congratulations. Right. I got a picture that's really great because we walk in the dressing room. He was so excited, right? He's holding it up because back then in the 80s, they weren't getting stuff.
Right.
Yeah. But I now fast forward when I'm talking to my students because when I teach in my basement, I got all my pictures behind me and they'll say something about Bon Jovi. I go, let me tell you a story. I says, could you imagine if he kept it? And somewhere in some place he has them. And one of his daughters one day is downstairs and goes, Dad, what is with this gymnastics one you got? He goes, what the heck is that?
Right.
At the Caesar Wrangler, they gave me a gymnastics trophy.
Well,
it's so funny.
How about, so this one isn't rock. Let's do Al Di Meola, Jean-Luc Ponty, and Stanley Clarke.
Oh, geez, yeah. Well, we did a lot of, look at that, man. Like an Icy Light concert series. We did so much, 1975, ticket price. Amazing. We did so much jazz.
$19.75.
75 cents. Yeah, I was looking for it's in 1995.
Yeah.
We did so much jazz. You can't do jazz anymore.
Right.
Between, what we were talking about earlier, and there was a show called Jazz Impressions that used to be on WYDD with Jim Caesar. I used to use them all the time. We did Al Di Meola. We did Weather Report, Crusaders. I was just booking them like crazy and promoting them when we were selling out, including at the Stanley back in those late 70s. But I look now and I think, except for Manchester Craftsman's Guild, I mean, you really can't get much jazz because times have changed, especially with radio playing it.
Right.
Yeah.
But we did great. Pittsburgh really was into their jazz.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So that was a big show, and they were all great.
A lot of
How about,
I'm still like vineyards and breweries.
Yeah. They'll do that.
Smaller,
much smaller.
venues,
But the real theaters where you could put the money into it and have a real performing show, it's just got to be New York,
really
LA,
tough.
Nashville, some of those places.
What about the first Ozfest?
Oh, jeez. Well, they were always crazy because, one thing about Ozfest was that Sharon, she was in charge because she managed him, and she kept it together. While, all the jokes that I don't know Ozzy like anybody else, but the jokes that you have between his TV show and all that, he really seemed like that was him as that character, but she had it totally together. So she ran a tight ship. Yeah. And so, she put the acts on that thought it was a success, and everything else, we just booked and everything, but she really was in control. And I always gave her a lot of, you're the one. Yeah. We did them in Johnstown. We had Ozzy in so many towns. I think about, going to a town like Johnstown and doing some of the shows we did, those people thought we were out of our minds up there. Because Johnstown was just a little bit different than Pittsburgh, and Erie. We did, as a promoter, we could do those secondary markets like State College, Harrisburg, Wheeling, and so we could do Pittsburgh, but you could kind of do those too.
Right.
But you just didn't go into like Akron, that was Ohio, but we did Ozzy in a lot of places.
Yeah, I was surprised that Queensrÿche show I was talking about in West Virginia. That was the Caesar English show.
Oh, yeah.
I was very surprised. Yeah.
Well, because those weren't, there's not a major promoter there.
Right,
As long as there's not a major promoter, the agent would say, do you want to take somebody to Harrisburg? Is there anybody else doing it? They go, not really. Good, we'll take it.
Right.
So that's how they do it.
So this is the last one we'll do. Dylan, do you have any stories with Dylan? Bob, for anybody that doesn't know.
There is Jacob Dylan.
Yeah, we were lucky enough to do a lot of shows with Bob Dylan, both at the Stanley, Syrian Mosque, State College, Mellon Arena. We were very lucky. And the thing about Bob Dylan is that he just kept wanting to tour, he was getting older. It seemed like he wanted to tour more.
Yeah, coming back again.
And we had I always joke a little bit because I just saw he was coming, and I think right away to the production manager for Bob Dylan, who I've known for a long time. He goes back so long. He used to be the production manager for Frank Zappa.
Oh yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
And and then he got with Bob for years, and he was I liked the guy, but he had a little bit of a weird sense of humor.
Sure.
Nothing was right.
Yeah.
It's kind of like this English guy for Queen. He comes in, and the dog food stuff you're bringing for dinner, that's not good. I go, that's not nice. I said, this caterer did a heck of a job. I eat it. And he goes, well, you shouldn't. I go, so anyways, one day at Icy Lane Amphitheater, which we were already a little shaky down there, we had Bob Dylan. And, Bob doesn't, you don't even get to meet Bob very much or say anything. But the guy I'm talking about walks up to us first thing, Traversari. I go, we don't say hello, how you doing, or anything. He goes, who would put a set of goddamn train tracks going through an amphitheater? I can't answer that one. I said, well, I don't know. I said, but if he doesn't make a big deal about it, nobody else will.
Yeah. Well, I saw that show, and he did make a big deal about it. Every time he would stop playing, every time the T went.
Yeah, he did. And it's fun. One last thing, when I saw him again at Heinz Hall, I didn't do the show, but I saw Bob, and I saw this guy comes out. I hadn't seen him for about 4 or 5 years. He comes out again. Know how you been? What's going on? He goes, Traversari, where you been? I go, and I joke about this with him. I go, I'm a professor. He goes, what the hell could you teach? I go, music business. He goes, like I said, what could you teach? I go, well, that's not nice. I said, I'm giving back, and I go, why don't you give back? Give back to what? I said, to young kids. He goes, you know who I work for? I says, yeah, Bob Dylan. He goes, the guy gets 83 or 84. He says, he's going to work until he dies, and I'm going to keep working for him. I ain't got time to give back to anybody. Okay, never mind. I'll go to the next person.
Well, we do the last thing we do is the same thing we do with every single guest.
Uh-oh, this sounds serious.
We got some rapid
Like
fire
something could happen
questions.
to him.
Yeah. We just got some really quick rapid fire questions here.
Oh, boy.
No, just
Okay.
You want me to go first?
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, cool.
So, Iron City or Rolling Rock?
Rolling Rock.
Three Rivers or Hinesfield?
Hinesfield.
Okay.
So usually we ask these questions, and a lot of people go, but I'm confident you're going to have an answer to this one.
Geez,
Your favorite 80s or 90s band?
Boy. Can I say Pearl Jam?
You can say Pearl Jam.
I'm going to say Pearl Jam.
Although, you might want to reserve that for later on.
Oh, okay.
It's okay. Turners or Schneiders?
Oh, probably Turner.
Isn't it
Yeah.
great that every single person knows?
Yes.
Wait.
There was one person that
Yeah.
didn't, right? I think maybe Dan
We know.
Rothschild, but yeah.
Most people know those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like two big bands or something.
That's exactly right. Well, what's your favorite 80s or 90s movie?
Oh, boy. Now, you might have me on that.
Yeah. You didn't spend a lot of time at the movie theater.
I really did. You
Yeah.
know, you'll tell me something that was in that time period, I'll say I went, but I don't really have anything
Yeah.
I could say there.
Right.
I'm out on that one.
We understand.
Yeah, sorry.
Donzi's and Chauncey's
Oh,
or
jeez.
Metropole in Rosebud?
Definitely Metropole.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're going to not
There's
know
a
the
ton of
answer to
shows
this.
there.
Is Die Hard a Christmas movie? You probably didn't even see it.
No.
No, I can tell by your
No.
face.
I'm out, man. I'm really bad when it comes to something.
Yeah.
Nirvana or Pearl Jam?
Oh, jeez. Well, I'm a Pearl Jam person.
Yeah, so am I.
But Nirvana, I mean, what can you say? It's hard when I can't say one or the other, but Pearl Jam's is so.
You still listen to them all
Oh,
the
my
time.
God. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And Eddie Vedder,
Oh,
I'm not even going to ask you this next question because you're not going to know. But did we ask
Okay.
the Three Rivers Stadium question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did
Three
we?
he
Rivers or
said 3 Rivers.
Hinesfield?
All right.
I mean, I loved them both. I was at so many things at both
Oh,
of
yeah.
them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's so hard, but yeah, I like them both.
Okay, last question. Southside Beehive or Oakland Beehive?
Oh, I would say Southside.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Me too. I worked there.
Those are good
so-
questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so much history, and it's good you guys do all this history. I think it's cool that somebody's keeping it alive.
Well, thank you.
Seriously, I
Thank
mean,
you.
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
Having
it's
a
out
good
there for
time.
people,
Yeah.
and people should continue to talk more about it. We have such a productive
We
scene here in
certainly
Pittsburgh
do,
for all
yes.
the years,
Yeah.
and somebody just bring this out and talk, and I think it's good.
Well, thank
Yeah,
you for
thank you. No
giving
problem.
back to your students
Right.
and
Oh, no
for
problem.
coming here tonight. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
This
No
was a
problem.
lot of fun.
Yeah.
Good.
Thank you
I'm
so
glad to
much.
come
Yes,
out.
Ed Traversari, everybody. Thank you again.
Post
for the Gen X Pittsburgh podcast are David Rouleau and Valerie Christoffel. Executive producer, David Rouleau. Producer and graphic design, Kimberly Rouleau. Producer, Valerie Christoffel. Video production and editor, Brent Isaac. Music by Neoscam. Sponsored by Potomac Station Coffee House and Con Alma.